Today in our Forgotten Games, we'll actually do a puzzle you'll probably find in a normal book and you'll probably fill it in with your pencil. The reason I do this is because of the simple fact that when I started making binary puzzles, I was confused how to solve them. And I was looking on the internet and they all give the same basic 4 rules. Yes, I know I have to do that. These are the rules. You only fill in 1 or 0, a maximum of 2 times 1 or 0 next to each other, so you can't have something like this. That's a 3 in a row. And every row has an equal amount of 1s and 0s, or every column. And every column and row is unique. Since I bought a 4-star, the last row pretty much never occurs because there's so much variety and there's so many rows. There's 12 rows and there's 12 columns, and they have 12 cells to make a combination of 1s and 0s. So the chance that they're the same is almost null. So these are really hard puzzles. I pretty much solved most of them by now with my own little tactics, so I'm going to share that one with you today. And I hope it helps you solve the high-level binary puzzles and really get your brain working again, because that's always a great feeling. So, first things first, we're going to look for doubles, because rule 2. And we're just going to surround them with an opposite number. So every 1 and 1 will surround with 0, 0. That will generate more combinations, so we'll just surround these again. It's somewhat meager, but we'll take it. Then we're gonna find 3 of a kind with an empty middle, because we know for a fact that can never be a 1 here, because that always has to be a 0. So 3 of a kind. So find 2 the same numbers with 1 space in between. So we found a few, and again pretty meager, but we'll see. We generated a few more of these, so we just go back to this again, and that will generate a few 3s again. And so you just keep going until you can't go any further. You probably forget some sometimes and then you just do them a little bit later, that's fine. For now this is sufficient. Next up, I'm gonna do something special, which might not make much sense right away, but will make sense very soon. I'm gonna look for every opposites. So I'm going to look for 4s with an opposite number, and I'm going to give that a little border. And you might wonder why you do this, because this is always going to be a 1 and a 0. Because I can't do 2 zeros, and I can't do 2 1s, so it has to be a 1 and a 0. And we'll look for all the others as well. Very meager result again, but that's fine. Now the reason I do this is instantly completely clear when you look at this row. I have 4 1s already. I know for a fact that both slots will also have a 1. This means I will have 6 1s. We have a 12 by 12 puzzle. The rule 3 is every row has equal 1s and 0s, so I'll have 6 1s and 4 zeros, so I'll need 2 more zeros, which can only go here. So we know for a fact this is going to be a 1, and in this block is also going to be a 1. That already fills them up entirely. So basically we checked the row for something that couldn't, but only could be a specific value. Now this row is pretty interesting. We'll have an equal amount of 1s and 0s, but it also means that I can never do this. So that means by default that both are actually a 1 and a 0. This will not help us much because it will never help us solve that specific row though. And you always just, whenever something changes, you start on the top again of the list and you just finish them one by one. A row that instantly starts getting your attention is of course this one. We can't really make up anything from this unless we know one of these values. The only thing we can know for sure is that these 3 will have a 0. So these 5, 4 of them will be a 1. That's all we know. Now of course something really obvious we forgot, and you're gonna forget them a lot. This one ends with 2 zeros, which is a massive help already. So this is going to be a 0. So now we know for a fact that this is going to be the last 0, and all the others can be instantly become a 1. And there we go with a 0 because we already marked this. Now this will help us fill in a lot of the field, of course, directly. And this can be a 0 because it's already marked. This is going to be a 1 and a 0 now. And of course, we'll start from the top again. This is going to be a 1. It doesn't help us too much though. I found 1 here. The next one. So let's take a look at this row. What do we know for a fact from this row? We know that around this 0 there needs to be 1, 1. And we also know that in this block also needs to be 1, 1. Because you can't have 3 zeros and you can't have 3 zeros. So that's kind of interesting because then we know for a fact that this one can only be a 0. And then we can surround that one again. So that helps us a little bit just get a few extra numbers in, which is great. Because this is always the end, this row. Oh. And we'll just basically repeat after that. But there will be more exclusions. And later we're just gonna go and try a few things ahead. But first we must make sure we have all the 4 helpers done completely. So let's check each row. We can't do anything with this. We can't do anything with this. It's because there's simply not enough numbers in there. We can't do anything with this because basically this has an equal amount, which basically means if something has an equal, so 3 zeros, 3 ones, it's going to be really hard to find that odd one out that you need. Now this one of course has 1 and a 0 left. This is most likely 1, 0 because that's going to be most of the times, but we're not going to gamble with anything like that again. This one is kind of interesting because you know we have 3 spots left and we have 5 zeros and we have 4 ones. Now we know this can't be 2 zeros because there's simply not enough zeros left, but it could be 1, 1 and 0, and it could be 1 and 0, 1. So we can't really do anything with this row either. We can't even make sure that this is a 1 and a 0 because it could still be 2 ones. So let's check the next one. This is again a 3, 3. This is a 3 and a 2, which gives you 4 zeros already. That means there's going to be 1 0 guaranteed here. Okay, you can actually mark this as a 1 and a 0 because simply put, this one needs another 0 because you can't have 3 ones. And we already have a 0 here, so that's 5. And you can't have 2 zeros here because you can't have 3 ones in a row. So this has to be a 1 and a 0. So that helps a little bit, not too much though. That means we know for a fact that this is 2 ones and a 0. Doesn't help too much. But it does give us an extra marking, so everything helps. Everything will take you to that goal. This is equal 3, 3, this is a 3, 3, this is a 3, 1. It's kind of interesting, but there's still so little numbers, 4 numbers only revealed. That's going to be incredibly hard. We still need 3 ones. So there's probably one side with 0, 0, 1, 1 and one side with 0, 0, 1, 0. And most likely, because this is 0, this is going to be the side with the most zeros. But you can't be sure. This one you don't have to look at it because it's way too little. And this is a 3, 3 again. And then of course you have the columns, which is a 3, 3, which can't be used. A 2, 2, which is way too little. We have a 4, 4, which is interesting, but we already been through this row. And this is a 2, 2, and this is a 1, 0, not enough. This is 0, 0, 1. This one might be interesting. It's 5 and 4. So we need one more 1. If I would put the 1 here, then we would have 0, 0. If I would put the 1 here, then we would have 0, 0, which is not possible. So that helps us a little bit. So this has to be a 0. And then we can do this again. And we already marked this one, so this is going to be a 0. So that helped us definitely. So this is going to be 1, 0. Now here we have a two of the same number with one space in between, it's going to be 0. Now look at what we got here. We know for a fact that this is going to be marked as well. So we do make some progress, especially on the bottom line. But other than that, it's pretty tough. So we have a 5, 4 here. Now this one, of course, you can mark instantly. So that's going to help us definitely. Because we have 4 ones and we have 5 zeros. This is going to be a 1 and a 0, so this has to be a 1. This is marked as well, so we have a 0, and this is marked as well, so we have a 1. And you see, of course, it doesn't help us at all, because we don't have a 0, 0, we don't have a 1, 1, and this is most of the time what's going to happen. You don't have the strange combinations. So what I mean to say with that is it's kind of predictable what's going to be there. Because, let's go back a little, if I would do this, that would become really handy because I would instantly be able to do this and this and this. And that is the situation that usually doesn't happen. So you can later gamble a little bit with that, knowing this is not going to happen like that. But it does give us a lot of new possibilities. Now, the last 2 columns, of course, are completely useless to us. But since we have so much new material, we're just simply going to check the rows again. And of course, before we forget, almost forget this one. So we know this is going to be 2 zeros and a 1. That's interesting. Why is this interesting? Because there's literally one combination it can happen. We can't do this. We can't do this. So it has to be this. And that helps us massively make a massive jump. Because 0, 0. Then we have 2 combinations of 2 the same number surrounding. There we go. Then we have another 0, 0. Then we have a 0, 0. Then we have a 1. Automatically fill this one. 1, 1. Then we have a 0 here. We have a 1, 0, 0. And this one is to the same. So 1. And this one is, of course, to the same. 1, 0. And here we have to the same 1. So that kind of fills up the field pretty well, isn't it? So now we have this, and here is something filled in, so we can start with this one. We have 5 zeros, and here's going to be 6 zeros, so this has to be a 1. We have a little marking here. We have a little marking here. We have a little marking here. And here, and we may need them later, so we mark them for another reason as well. If we're really stuck, we have to start filling in stuff and then see when it crashes. So when suddenly one row has 1 and then we're backwards, and then you actually want to make it break because then you know that was the wrong start. And you always do that on situations like this. But we don't have to do it right now because we're still on a very easy flow. Other puzzles might completely crash. So let's check some rows again. This one is going to be easy because we have 1 slot here. And that's going to be, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ones. And then we can fill this one in, and we can fill this one in. And we can fill this one in, this one, this one, this one. Massive, massive. 0, 1. So let's check. We have 5 ones here. We know for a fact that one of the 6th one has to be here. So that's going to be a 0, 1 again. And then this is going to be a 0. And then we have a 3 here. Now this row becomes really easy because there's literally already 6 ones. So 0, 0. 1, 1. Automatically fill this one. 1. This automatically fill this one. It's always fun when you mark them, you don't have to look. So usually I have 2 pencils, a red and a blue one, or a red and a gray one, whatever. If you're pencils or pens. Best with a pencil with an eraser, so when you make a mistake you can go back. Of course. So what do we have here? We can't really make anything out of this because we still have a 1 and a 0 to go. For this one we have 3 spots. Always interesting, 3 spots. We have 5 zeros, but we don't have any use for this because this could easily become 2 1s. Here we have 5 1s again. Now we know for a billion fact that here is going to be at least 1 1. And that also means that both this one and this one is going to be a 0. Because if I put a 1 here, I would have 2 zeros here, so that wouldn't even be possible. Of course, we have a 3 here again, and this is going to be a 1 and a 0 then. So you have to mark this properly, because this could still be a 1. If I would make this a 0, and this a 1, this a 1, this is not automatically a 0, because this could easily be a 1 as well. Now here we have another row. We already know we're missing 1. So we have 5 1s, so this is going to be a 0. This row is not going to help us because we have an equal amount, 4 and 4. Here we have a 3. Let's see if we can find something here. We have 5 1s, and that's perfect because one of these is going to be a 1. So we know for a fact that this is going to be a 0. Because when this ends with a 0, there has to be one of these two has to be a 1. Actually, always you can just check. If you have a trio and 1 is filled in, you probably have one of each or 2 of the opposites. So you have either a 1 and a 0 or a 0 and a 0. And these two rows both have an equal amount, which is always bad. Okay, this is an example of a very bad row because you have one extra 1, but you have a lot of trailing numbers of the one you already have a lot from. So you can't say this one needs to have a 1. No, this one can have 2 zeros. And the same counts for this area that can have 2 zeros. This area can also have 2 zeros. So you really can't do anything with this. This column is also useless. Now then of course we have this one, which is completely not useless. This one, it has to be a 0 because there's 6 1s, and then you can also do these two, which helps you a lot. And this one actually helps you as well, gives you a 0 because we have this combination. So now this is an even row, which literally became useless again. But of course, before we skip this one, this has to be a 1 and then a 0. Then we have a 3 here, 3 spots open, which is always a good thing. And we have 5 zeros. This is actually bad because it ends with a 0, which means this could be 2 1s. So it doesn't help us at all. So we're almost done, but we're literally so far still. So at this point in the puzzle, you may be completely stuck. Or no, we're not stuck yet, but I was hoping we actually get stuck because that would help us in a way. Okay, this one needs to have a 1, of course, so we know that. We have 5 1s, and this one needs to have a 1. So this one has to be a 0. And that also helps us make this a 1. So what we're going to do now is we're going to fill in something. And we're going to see if everything becomes equal. And you want to do that. Normally it already occurs earlier that you have to start working ahead, because there's no way you can figure out by now what is the right number. But you will figure it out once you go wrong. But you have to make sure you always track how you do that. So if I do it on paper with a pencil, I would simply write it very small, something like this. And I would just try and to see where I end. But you could also, of course, use another color. So this would be a 0. You're already working with another color pencil, so you can just mark them like this. Of course, needlessly to say, this is going to be a 0. And this is going to be a 1. I'm going to mark them. Then this has to be a 0. And this has to be a 1. And then we have a 1, a 0, a 1. And this has to be a 0. Now, if we've done it right, we can simply check all the rows that has changes. So how many zeros this has? 6. How many 1s this has? 6. So that's perfect. Like this would completely solve the puzzle. If we would have made a mistake, then there's one last rule we could check to see if this... The rule 4 basically didn't do anything. After 4 stars, it's just way too little chance. But you can use it to check. Yes, this is him. You can actually check it using this row. As you can see, we have 1 1 0 0 1 1 0 1 0 1 0 0. And then here we also have exactly the same. 1 1 0 0 1 1 0 1 0 1 0 0. So if I would have turned these two around, so that actually means this puzzle is wrong. I've done it the wrong way. And the puzzle is supposed to go just like this. To ensure that these rows are not the same, then this would be the correct solution. Actually.